Hello everyone and welcome to Finance for Engineers course. Till now, you must have understood why corporates or business firms are very cautious about the management of the working capital. Smooth functioning of the organization is possible only because of proper management of working capital. Numerous activities one has to perform for managing and maintaining the optimum level of working capital. Today, we will discuss one of the activity concerning to efficient working capital management, that is computation of working capital requirement. A firm should have adequate working capital to support its budgeted level of activity in terms of production or sales. It should have neither more nor less working capital than required, while the excessive working capital adversely affects its profits. The adequate working capital interrupts its smooth operations. Therefore, its correct computation is an important constituent of efficient working capital management. See, as we have discussed in earlier lectures, there are two important components of working capital, that is, current asset and current liability. Each component is required to be separately estimated to determine the correct amount of working capital. So, let us see the format of statement of working capital requirement for a particular period. It helps us to estimate the working capital requirement of the firm by using information provided concerning to various current assets and current liabilities in the books of. Here we will mention the name of the company in whose book we are writing or we are preparing this statement of working capital requirement. Next is statement of working capital requirement for the period. Whatever is the expected period, we have to mention. Next is three column particulars and two amount column. First amount column is called inner amount column and next one is outer amount column. Then we started the calculation of working capital requirement with current asset. You can see here there are different components of current asset. First is stock of raw material, stock of WIP, that is work in progress, stock of finished goods, debtors, prepaid expenses, that is expenses paid in advance, then cash in hand or cash at bank. And the amount of all these components as written in inner column of amount. Then the total of the sales, the total of all the current assets is taken to the outer column. Next is less current liabilities. Under that, you can see various current liabilities, for example, creditors. Next is outstanding expenses, that is the amount of the expenses we have not yet paid to the party. Then bank overdraft, the facility which is provided by the bank for the business firms. Again, the same case, we have written all the amount in inner column and carried the total of current liability to the outer column. Then in In the next row, you can see working capital, that is A minus B. We have discussed in earlier lectures that how to calculate working capital. The formula for calculating working capital is current asset minus current liability. So here, these are the current assets and these are the current liabilities. So this is the amount of working capital. Next, in some organization, they required to keep certain additional amount as a safety margin. So that percentage or that amount we have to add into the working capital. So by adding safety margin in our working capital, we receive the total working capital requirement, or this is somehow estimated working capital requirement of a particular company for a given period of time. So in this way, we can uh, estimate or calculate working capital requirement of any organization. So moving further, we will see example and we'll try to solve the problem concerned with working capital estimation. So this is the first example. The management of Wipro Limited has called you for ascertaining the working capital needed to finance a level of activity of 30,000 units of output for the year 2020. The cost structure for the company is as follows. Two columns, particular, and next is cost per unit in rupees. So in our first column, you can see all the expenses head are mentioned, that is direct raw material, direct labor, direct overhead. And against it, you can see cost given in rupees 20, then 5 and 15. The total of these three costs is called as total cost, rupees 40. Then profit 10 rupees, and by adding profit we get selling price rupees 50. So this is information taken from the cost sheet of a particular company. Now the next is some additional information they have provided to us, which will help to estimate or compute the requirement of working capital. So let us see one by one what is the additional information given. First is past trend indicates that raw materials are held in stock on an average for 2 months. Second, work in progress will approximate to half a monthly production. Next, finished goods remain in the warehouse on an average for 1 month. Next, suppliers for materials extend 1 month's credit. Next, for debtors, 2 months credit is usually allowed. Next, a minimum cash balance of rupees 25,000 is expected to be maintained. And at the end, they are saying that the production pattern is assumed to be uniform throughout the year. Okay, so looking at this additional information, you must have understood that this information is somehow concerned with a current asset and current liability. That is the two important components of working capital. And to support this, to help the calculation, they have given earlier information, which is concerned with the cost of production, total cost of the product and sales price and all. So let us see how to solve this type of problem. So as we have seen in a problem, already they have given information concerned with cost per unit, and they are expecting from us to calculate the working capital requirement for the level of activity of 30,000 units. So that means we have to first convert this information into total cost and total sales relating to 30,000 units. So first we will start with this. So let us write here statement showing total cost and sales. This is nothing but for the activity, level of activity of 30,000 units. So in this way we can present the data, we can identify the total amount need to spend on direct raw material, on direct labor, direct overhead, just by multiplying units produced to the cost per unit. So it will give you total amount. So here you can see now directly raw material expenses will be 6 lakh, direct labor 1,50,000, direct overhead 4,50,000. Addition of these three is total cost 12 lakh, profit 3 lakh, and thus we arrive at sales price 15 lakh. This is for the level of activity which is expected 30,000 units. Now, next, after that, we will use the information which is given as an additional information for solving the problem or identifying the requirement of working capital. So how to present that? That calculation will be treated as working note because this will not be a final one. Whenever we will calculate, we will get the amount of a particular component and we have to present that into a statement, which will be a final statement, final solution. So before that, we need to do a working note. So let us start with working note. Here what we will do, we will see one by one what information they have given and what is expected to calculate. So let us see. First, additional information was concerned with the raw material requirement, and the period mentioned over there was 2 months. So requirement is for 2 months. So how to calculate? See, 12-month information is with us now, and that is 6 lakh. Now, from where I have taken this particular figure, the raw material requirement is always based on the direct raw material figure, which we have calculated in our earlier statement. So that I have taken here for calculation. So 12 months is equal to 6 lakh. So here we are interested to know about 2 months. So how much for 2 months? 2 months. So this is the presentation, and now you are expected to calculate the requirement for 2 months. So simply by doing a cross multiplication, you can get the amount. This is about the raw material requirement. And the next is work in progress requirement. Second additional information was concerned with work in progress requirement, and that is only for half a month. So how to calculate this work in progress requirement? The work in progress requirement is based on all the three components, that is material, labor, and overhead. Everything get utilized while the process happens into the organization in a manufacturing unit. Okay, so we need to consider all the three components of that cost sheet. So how to consider that, how to evaluate that? So let us start with first A is direct raw material. Now here you can see half month requirement. So half month, that is full period, 100% period we have considered. So next is for 12 months, the same amount will be the base, that is direct raw material, that is 6 lakh. How much for half month? Then second component was direct labor. So here we will consider 50% period. So 1 by 4 month, we will consider here for calculation because work has not completed yet. Half work has done, and that's why we are calling it as a work in progress. So 50%, we assume that 50% work has completed. So that's why direct labor 50% we will consider. And we have figure with us, which we have calculated in earlier statement, that is 1,50,000. So 12 months is equal to 1,50,000. So how much for 1 by 4 month? Next is direct overhead, which is the third component of that total cost. Again, the same thing we will consider here. 50% period we will consider for calculation. We assume that 50% work has completed over there. Okay, so 1 by 4 months. Okay, so 12 months is equal to 4,50,000. Same thing we have done. We have taken this amount from our earlier statement of total cost and sales. And then how much for 1/4 month. So by this way, it is expected to calculate the requirement of working capital. So here, first we calculated raw material requirement. We tried to identify raw material requirement. And second is work in progress requirement. So let us cross check what is our answer. First, raw material requirement answer is 1 lakh. Next is WIP. Under that WIP requirement, first is direct raw material. Here, amount is 25,000. Then for direct labor calculation, you can do here and see what's the answer. It is 3,125. Then direct overhead 9,375. Now we have to take the total of A, B, and C for identifying the requirement of work in progress. So let us do that. A plus B plus C is equal to 37,500. So this is the total work in progress requirement. So kindly keep in mind that whenever we need to calculate requirement of work in progress, we have to consider all these three components of the total cost, because yet the product has not produced. It is in a process. So 100% for raw material, 50% for labor, and 50% for overhead we have to consider, and by this way we have to calculate. Now the next is, yet we have to do the calculation concerned with remaining items, that is finished goods, debtors, creditors. So let us see how to continue the calculation. Here it is finished goods requirement, and the period given is 1 month. So for 12 months it is 12 lakh. So from which I have taken this, how can be this much amount? So you can see the statement. In statement, you can find that 12 lakh is a total cost amount. So finished goods is always calculated on the total cost amount. Okay, so for 12 months, it is 12 lakh. So how much for 1 month? So like this, we will calculate for finished good requirement. Then we have suppliers requirement, which is also called as creditors requirement, and that is 1 month. So on which figure we have to calculate the suppliers requirement? Who are the suppliers? Suppliers are the people who are supplying raw material to the manufacturing unit, to the business firm. Okay, so here we will take 12 months is equal to 6 lakh. This is the amount of direct raw material. On that basis, we are going to calculate suppliers requirement. So how much for 1 month? Next is debtors requirement. Now, who are the debtors again? Debtors are the customers, those who have purchased material from us on a credit basis. Okay. And their requirement is 2 months. So on which figure we have to calculate? So normally it is a practice on cost. It gets calculated. Sometimes some organization also calculate this particular figure, that is debtors requirement on total sale. Okay. So best practices is to calculate on a cost. So that's why we have considered total cost as a base for calculation. So here I have purposely written that on cost because there should not be any confusion. If you look into the books, some books consider the base as a cost, some books consider sales price as a base for a calculation. Okay, so here total cost given is a 12 lakh. So for 12 months it is 12 lakh. How much for 2 months? So kindly keep in mind here we have taken total cost as a base for calculating debtors requirement. And the next is cash requirement, which is already given, but I have mentioned here because I will refer this working note for preparing my final statement of working capital requirement. Okay, so that's why I have mentioned all the point here so that I can take all the figures from this working note to statement. So let us do a calculation and check whether your answer is right or went wrong. So finished goods requirement is 1 lakh. Suppliers requirement is 50,000. Then debtors requirement is 2 lakh. And already given cash requirement 25,000. So here all the information whichever they have given for us, which is base for calculating this working capital requirement, we have completed. And now we have to prepare a statement of requirement of working capital for a given company. So let us move to that particular statement. So here, this is a practice normally in accounting finance. So write the company's name on a top. So again, I have written here in the books of Wipro Limited, statement of working capital requirement for the year 2020. It is very clear that this requirement of working capital is limited to year 2020 and this is prepared for the Wipro company. And now this is the statement. You can see the format, the same format we have applied here. Current asset minus current liability is equal to total working capital required. So current asset, stock of raw material, we have already done a calculation. Same figure we have taken here in an inner column. Then stock of WIP, that is 7,500. Stock of finished goods, 1 lakh. Debtors, 2 lakh. Cash in hand already given in a problem, 25,000. Then added all these figures and the total carried to outer column 4,62,500. Then deducted current liability. Here current liability only one is given, that is creditors. So there is no need to write other current liability heads and all. So I have written only one, creditors, which I have calculated earlier. And the amount written in inner column. And again, same has carried to outer column 50,000. And by this way, calculated total working capital requirement of the company. And the amount here is 4,12,500. That is current asset minus current liability. So in this way, in this manner, we have to calculate, we have to estimate the requirement of working capital for a given period of time of any company. Now the next is another problem. The second example is given for Rick's Company Limited, situated at Kolhapur. So let us see what information they have provided to us. A pro forma cost sheet of Rick's Company Kolhapur provides the following information. Again, two columns are there, particulars, and next is cost per unit in rupees. So raw material, rupees 80, direct labor, 30, overheads, 60, total cost, 170, that is addition of all the three, profit, 30, and the selling price is 200. Additional information they have provided to us for further calculation of requirement of working capital. The first point here is raw materials are in stock on an average 1 month. That means 1 month period will be there for raw materials which will remain in a stock. Second is materials are in process on average half a month. That means material will take half a month for getting processed. Next is finished goods in stock on an average 1 month. That means it will lie in a godown for 1 month. Next is credit allowed by supplier is 1 month. That is nothing but creditors requirement. And credit allowed to debtors is 2 months. This is debtors requirement. Next is lag in payment of wages is 1.5 months. Lag in payment of overhead expenses is 1 month. This is nothing but outstanding wages and outstanding overhead. That means yet we have not paid, but we have to pay. Okay. And finally, they are saying that cash in hand and at bank is expected to be rupees 40,000. So we have to consider this amount even while computing working capital requirement. Now, next they are saying that you are required to prepare a statement showing the working capital needed to finance a level of activity of 10,400 units of production. You may assume that production is carried out evenly throughout the year. That means here they have given information concerned with the total number of units expected to be produced during a particular year. So now, whatever we have done in an earlier example, the same steps we have to follow here also. So first, we will prepare a statement of total amount of cost and sales required for 10,400 units of production. So let us start with the calculation, preparing that particular statement. So on the top, we will write statement showing total cost and sales. See, this is a base for our calculation of requirement of various components of current asset and current liability. So that is why it is needed to be prepared first. In the same manner, we have prepared this, presented this. You can see here same columns, particular cost per unit, the given information, unit produced, it is also with us. And now we have calculated total amount in rupees for all the components of cost sheet. Direct raw material, 8,32,000. Direct labor, 3,12,000. Direct overhead 6,24,000. Total cost 17,68,000. Profit 3,12,000 and selling price 20,80,000. Now let us start with working note, calculating one by one requirement of current asset and current liability. Now the first here requirement is of raw material. Period is 1 month. So for 12 months, how much we have? 8,32,000. So let us calculate for 1 month. Then second is work in progress requirement, half a month. Here I already told you in earlier example that we have to consider all the three components of total cost while calculating WIP requirement, that is material, labor and overhead. Again, one thing we have to keep in mind that raw material requirement will be 100% of period. Then for labor 50% period we will consider, and for overhead also we will consider 50%. Now what is this 50, 50 and 100? This is a period. Okay, so period we are considering 100%, 50% and 50% and not the amount. So let us see again how to calculate this WIP requirement for this particular company. First is direct raw material, half month requirement, that is 100% we have considered. Period 12 months, it is already with us 8,32,000. So how much will be half month requirement? Then next is direct labor, 50% of the period, that is 1/4 month. 12 months is equal to 3,12,000. So how much for 1/4 month? Next is direct overhead, same thing, 1/4 month, that is 50% of the period given. So 12 months is equal to 6,24,000. Then how much for 1/4 month? Okay, so in this way, we will calculate working progress requirement, and then we will add A plus B plus C, and we will get the WIP requirement. So let us check for his answer. Here, raw material requirement is 69,333.33. Then in WIP, requirement of raw material is 34,666.67. Direct labor requirement is 6,500. Direct overhead requirement is 13,000. And by this way, we arrive at work in progress requirement as 54,166.67. Now next is finished goods requirement 1 month. Here you must have understood that now that we have to calculate finished goods requirement on total cost. So 12 months is equal to 17,68,000. So how much for 1 month? Next is suppliers requirement, that is for 1 month, and this is needed to be calculated on raw material. So for 12 months, raw material requirement was 8,32,000. So how much for 1 month? Debtors requirement is 2 months, and we are considering here the base as a total cost. So we are calculating debtors on a cost basis. Okay. So for 12 months, it is 17,60,000, 68,000. So how much for 2 months? Purposely I am writing on cost. There should not be any confusion. If anybody want to calculate on a sales basis, we can write over there on sales. Next calculation is lag in payment of wages, that is outstanding wages, and the period given is 1.5 months. So on which figure we are expected to calculate wages? Yes, it is calculated on a labor, direct labor, because we are paying wages to the labor. Okay, and that's why direct labor amount we are going to consider here as a base. So 12 months is equal to 3,12,000, and how much for 1.5 months. Next is lag in payment of overhead 1 month. Now what is this? Outstanding overhead. That means yet we have not paid, but we have to pay. Okay. So outstanding overhead. Now again, what is the base for calculating this outstanding overhead amount? Yes, it is direct overhead. The figure is given us in example, as well as we have calculated the total amount of direct overhead in the statement of total cost and sales. The same we will carry here. So 12 months is equal to 6,24,000. How much for 1 month? This is the calculation of various requirements. And finally, they have given cash requirement to us. Okay, so let us check what is the answer. So for finished goods requirement, it is 1,47,333.33. Supplier requirement is 69,333.33. Debtors requirement 2,94,666.67. Lag in payment of wages 39,000. Lag in payment of overhead 52,000. And cash requirement, there is no need to calculate. It is already given, is 40,000. So now we have everything with us. Now needed to prepare a statement of computation of working capital requirement. So let us move to the statement in the books of Sixth Company, Kolhapur. Statement of working capital requirement for the year. They have not given us year for which we are expected to calculate this working capital requirement. It doesn't matter, we will keep it as it is, and then present all the information in a proper format. So this is the format, particulars and to amount column. You can see here current asset, whatever we have calculated, we have taken here against each or individual item, that is stock of raw material, stock of WIP, stock of finished goods, debtors, cash in hand, and the total of current assets carried to outer column. Then less current liabilities. Here you can see current liabilities, creditors, outstanding wages, outstanding overhead. Then total of all the three current liabilities carried to outer column, and current asset minus current liability gives us total working capital required for the Sixth Company for a given period of time. That is 4,45,166.67. And here you must have understood that how to calculate the working capital requirement of a firm or organization. Each and every component is very significant while estimating the requirement of working capital. And this requirement of working capital plays a very significant role, because on that basis only the company decides how much fund they should keep liquid to finance their various day-to-day activities. So therefore, it is necessary to calculate correct amount of working capital requirement. Much care should be taken while dealing with each and every component of current asset as well as current liability. So I'm ending this session here, and in the next session, we will continue some problems relating to computation of working capital requirement. Thank you.